Well, hello there. Hello there, friends and lovers. Happy Sunday. It is Sunday, March 7th, 2021.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir on Sunday, March 7th, 2021. The 66th day of the year. You listening live probably heard the theme song twice there. Sorry about that. YouTube was being glitchy as it is wont to do. And I am excited. I am really excited.
Why are you excited
Well,
there,
I kind of have to be, because we're going to do an episode on passion. But here's the thing. I have got so many things to be passionate about and so many things I want to talk to you about on the subject of passion on this, the 66th day of the year, with 299 days remaining, and there are less than 300 days left in 2021.
All right, better hurry up and get all the things we want to do in.
Better hurry up. Man, have I got an agenda? We're going to talk about that. 293 days until Christmas, 28 days until Easter. I'm going to go through the opening remarks quickly here. I'm going to talk fast, so you're going to have to listen fast. Believe me, it will be worth it. On this day, March 7th in 1923, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening was published. On this date, March 7th, 1923, Robert Frost's poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening was published, a poem which introduced millions of Americans to poetry. See, I'm not a poetry person. I need to listen to Kirk Barbera's podcasts, and now he's got a whole network of shows he's doing. We'll talk about that, because I am not that savvy on poetry. But it's great because Robert Frost published Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening on this day in 1923, and that's a poem I can handle. In fact, it's really short. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. A lot of you will say, I already know that, or I remember that from grade school. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Like most of Frost's poetry, Stopping by Woods adopts a simple tone of a simple New England farmer contemplating an everyday sight. There's a whole biography of Robert Frost available on the Wikipedia site. You should take a look at it. Great American poet. Wrote for people like me who could actually understand what he wrote. Wonderful stuff. Also, we wish a happy birthday to Luther Burbank. In fact, I'm going to put his birthplace house up on the screen there.
Oh.
Luther Burbank developed more than 800 strains and varieties of plants. He was a horticulturist.
He was.
Yes, who was honored at Greenfield Village with the preservation of his garden office and his birthplace home. And the cornerstone. This is great. Amy will know all about this.
I do.
Yes, Luther Burbank developed more than 800 strains and varieties of plants, including a successful breed of Shasta daisy, fire poppy, and a natural genetic variant of the Burbank potato, later known as the russet Burbank. The russet Burbank potato is now the most widely grown potato in North America and is famously used for McDonald's French fries. Now, why do we care about Luther Burbank? He made a new potato, great. No, he did all sorts of amazing things in plants. In fact, he was such an extraordinary man, he became a good friend of Thomas Edison. They had part of the Mutual Admiration Society with Henry Ford there. In fact, I'll put up his garden house real quick there. That house and this garden office are actually at Greenfield Village, where Amy works for a living. And you can see them when you come to town to see us at the next GlowCon, or just to come visit us. And one more picture here. At Greenfield Village, there's a cornerstone. And they had the dedication of the opening of the property, this enormous historical museum and enclosed museum. and other properties in connection with the Ford Rouge automobile plant. Amazing place, but here's the thing. Cornerstone, dedication, signed by Thomas Alva Edison. And whose shovel is that in the concrete? Well, that's one of Luther Burbank's shovels. And unfortunately, Burbank died 3 years before the cornerstone was dedicated, so Thomas Edison placed the shovel in place.
Now, that's something I didn't know. That's really nice.
There you go. Finally, it's National Cereal Day. So that'll get our chat off to a start. What is your favorite breakfast cereal on National Cereal Day?
It's not Serial Killer Day.
It's not Cereal Killer. Well, you're eating it. That's kind of violent right there. What is your favorite I have to keep the passion going here because I forgot it's Passion Day too. But what is your favorite cereal on National Cereal Day? For the record, my favorite cereal that I eat the most, I like the most, is cornflakes because they go best with fruit.
Okay.
Bananas and cornflakes. Cornflakes are great. But my favorite guilty pleasure breakfast cereal would have to be...
Golden Grahams?
Close.
Oh.
I would say Captain Crunch.
That's even
with
worse.
those crunch berries.
Crunch berries.
Captain Crunch with crunch berries. You feel like you're eating strawberries, except what you're really eating is empty carbohydrates. But they're so delicious. Oh my gosh. What is your favorite breakfast cereal?
We actually have some answers from Marilyn. Says eggs and bacon.
Eggs and bacon cereal. Eggs and bacon cereal is great.
And Lisa says Raisin Bran Crunch, which actually is about my answer. I really like Raisin Bran. Raisin Bran Crunch is even better.
That's fun, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, yeah, eggs and bacon is probably, in this age of paleo and anti-carbohydrates, that's probably a healthier option.
And Jennifer, who's over on YouTube right now, she says Lucky Charms, and she loves the crunch berries.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Although they put in too many. If I was going to get into the topic and explain, I would say if I ever do Captain Crunch, and I usually don't, but if I do something that sweet, I'll buy a box of Captain Crunch and a box of Captain Crunch with crunch berries and mix it, because they put too much of that red stuff in. It's tasty, but it's too much. So that's my recipe for the best cereal besides cornflakes.
We have your brother Mike here, who says that going back to Greenfield Village with a Luther Burbank home, that it's definitely a must see.
Awesome.
So hey there, Mike. And
outstanding.
And we have a question from Jim.
Yes.
But we'll get to it in just a second. It's about the poem that you read.
I don't know that it has a deeper meaning than just sharing the experience of stopping by a property that you know on the way on a long journey.
Yeah, he asks, what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's pure, well, escapism isn't the right word, but it takes me to that moment. It takes me to that place. I live in Michigan. We're in Motown, just outside Detroit. So I feel viscerally any good poem that involves snowfall and a field covered in snow and woods and trees and.
Well, I liked the poem mainly because it puts you there in that moment. It really, really helps you, get into that role, as it were, and it makes you feel that kind of exhilaration of going forward and going into a new adventure and not sleeping and having a challenge before you.
Yes.
That's actually not a drudgery or anything like that, but a really exciting challenge.
It is. And Jim asks the right question, because we're going to get back to that idea not of escapism, but of modeling and reframing and as ways to magnify your passion. So I'm actually glad he asked that. What are we listening to this week? This is strange, and this will sort of set the table, as it were, metaphorically. Never metaphor I didn't like. What we're listening to this week, I just listened to Radio Ragnar.
Is there a pirate involved?
It's pirate radio.
It's pirate radio.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it damn well had better have been. Radio Ragnar is what Rozzy and the folks at Ayn Rand Center UK are calling their new Clubhouse club. Clubhouse being the latest social media platform.
That only people with Apple can get onto.
That only people with Apple devices can receive. Somehow there's a new platform that's audio only. It does everything Zoom does, but less. You can't see each other. All you can do is talk to each other. It's like being on a conference call.
Oh, how
Somehow
cool.
this is the next big, and I'm not wrong about that. I'm not exaggerating. I sound like I'm kidding because it makes no sense to me, but it really is the next big thing.
From what I understand, you can talk with people that you would never think that you would talk to. It was like Lex Friedman, or if you're invited to a certain place, a certain clubhouse event.
It's funny you're right. We mentioned Lex Friedman the last couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Russian guy, lives in the United States, PhD, multiple degrees, AI expert, has interviewed on his podcast every thought leader that's out there. Has been on Yaron Brook show. He's interviewed Yaron Brook. Mm-hmm. Very sympathetic to Ayn Rand and objectivism and things we're into. And Mary Aline's right. The Android app is coming to Clubhouse. And Lex Friedman I keep saying Friedman because that's how his name's spelled. Lex Friedman, as he pronounces it. He's on Clubhouse all the time. Well, maybe half the time. You go into this app and it shows you anybody who you've connected with by following them. Mm-hmm. It shows you if they're in a call, if they're in a meeting. And these are anywhere from 5 people to 5,000 people. It's really crazy. And he's always on. But the point is, all sorts of people you've heard of, people you know, are on this thing all the time. It really is the next big thing. And yet, 2/3 of the world is excluded because it doesn't yet run in a browser. It doesn't yet run on an Android device.
Either somebody's going to harness this power and create something really special with it, or it's going to be Google Plus again.
That's right. And here's the thing. If it's going to be something, I'm going to be on it.
You're going to take it over. You're going to monetize it.
Well, it's part of it is because ARC UK, Ayn Rand Center UK, is determined to jump right on this platform. And they're already on every day. Every time they do a podcast, and even days they don't do a podcast, they're on Clubhouse doing something usually related to their most recent podcast. The landscape of audiovisual resources and entertainment and inspiration in philosophy, which we're into, and psychology in general, and objectivism and Ayn Rand in particular. All of this landscape is changing dramatically in 2021.
It is.
And it's interesting because a lot of people thought, well, after the pandemic winds down, I will never use Zoom again. I'm going to the office. I'm talking to people directly. All of this electronic stuff, it'll still be there, but it's not going to be that big a thing. And some people are saying, well, Workspace has figured out how to save money using it, so some of that will continue. But it looks like all this has really done is accelerate what's being done with the new media. Mm-hmm. And so in trying to keep up with all of this, Clubhouse and also Facebook Live and YouTube and everything that's going to keep happening there, I'm fired up. I'm excited.
Mary Aline says she wants to join the ARC UK on Clubhouse soon, she hopes. Whenever I see ARC UK, I'm like...
Ayn Rand Center UK, yeah. ARC. Doesn't sound... They need a better...
I prefer GLOW, like Great Lakes Objectivists.
Great Lakes Objectivists. That worked out much better. But I am really fired up. I'm anxious, actually. Anxious is a good word for it. About my place in this new landscape, and what with our weekly show, that thank you for being here, that everybody's on, and the other content that I'm working on, I'm strictly brainstorming for Radio Ragnar. That's what they're calling their club on Clubhouse. Radio Ragnar, their pirate radio station. This is going to be an even more exciting year than I'd have thought on December 31st, 2020. You've heard me talk about 2021 is going to be amazing. Well, it's going to be even a little more amazing than I was expecting. And so with all that Ant's participation, I am feeling very passionate about my values. So let me go back. Let me go back in time. We need some special effects for this. 1 year ago.
I'm doing the Wayne's World thing, the transition.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have our camera screen there. We can't see ourselves. We have to look at the computer here. On March 8th, 2020. There should be like a whomp sound of things falling. On March 8th, 2020, our official episode number 1 of 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir So that would be tomorrow, would be the official anniversary.
Yeah.
But we did a
March 8th.
preview episode a week ago. So
Yes.
March 8th, 2020, episode number 1 on Benevolence.
Benevolence is good, actually. I listened to it. It's only about a half an hour long.
Oh,
Pretty
yeah.
good.
Yeah, they were shorter then. I think they were only 3 minutes back then. After the usual introductions and other fun, I recommended the podcast of the week, the Yaron Brook Show, and his 2019 episodes on meaning, purpose, and hierarchy of values, and living a rational life in an irrational world. And you should listen to those after this episode. You should go back and listen to those episodes I recommended then. They're just as good now as they were a year after they were done, now 2 years after they were done. Mm-hmm. Link in today's show notes. And then we introduced benevolence, defined as goodwill, a disposition to do good. Here, I'm going to grab my notes, my big stack of notes.
Whoa. Now you should see, Robert has compiled all of last year's notes into one file folder. And it's a pretty big, good
folder.
File.
Oh, file
box,
case, yes.
a
It's
file
a case.
box.
It's,
and so
it's 53 file folders.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is that? And he's like, all my notes from last year.
Well, this is what the notes from one of our shows look like. You can see the cameras here, of course. And after all of that introductory stuff, I read a quote from the New York Times here. Commentators describe ours as a cynical age, as if stating the self-evident. Bad faith is a given. Both of those lines were from a New York Times article, which I posted links to, and a YouTube link to. And all of this is true. This is a cynical age, and bad faith is a given, especially on the social networks, and this is wholly unnecessary.
Yes.
So your assignment is first to remind yourself that you know better, and that we live in a civilized, relatively free, enormously productive division of labor society in which most of the people with whom you interact can be trusted to provide value for value, at least to the extent that you deal with them. You don't have to go home and find out if your barista is really a good person. To the extent you deal with them, they are providing you value for value, and more, in most of them, you can find genuine goodwill, real benevolence, even if it takes a bit of digging sometimes to find it. So your homework, again, this is 1 year minus 1 day ago today, your homework is to be awesome and to see the awesome. We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. That New York Times article. In our society, the vogue is a rather dim view of one's fellow men. Polls report abysmal levels of trust and respect. And then I love this, abysmal levels of trust and respect for political leaders, the courts, the military, the media, universities, and religious institutions. And I thought, well, that's well-deserved, but they go on to say individual views of one another have become increasingly caustic. Well, I'm not going to read any further from those notes, but that's where we started out. And that gave you some idea what our mission looked like. So looking at that episode, I'm feeling the passion. I am all fired up. Because with the advances in resources that we talked about, and I don't just mean Clubhouse, but Facebook Live and YouTube and the existing platforms that we're capitalizing on, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, and we're on Spotify, and we're on Libsyn, we're everywhere. With all those resources together with 1 year of talking about benevolence, a year of talking about values, a year of talking about pride and gratitude and positivity and optimism and love. Quite frankly, I am all fired up. I am feeling passion. What is passion? Did you look up a definition for passion?
I saw some passion definitions, but they're pretty general.
Okay, well, the two I looked up were Strong, barely controlled emotion. Do I sound barely controlled?
You're on the edge, Robert.
I'm telling you, I listened to last week's episode, and remember, last week's episode took place on National Chocolate Souffle Day. We made chocolate souffles. We showed them on camera, but we put cocoa over the top, cocoa powder. And I noticed that when I did the episode, I sounded like I had eaten something with cocoa powder. Okay, it wasn't that bad, but it was not great. So not only am I feeling passionate, I'm determined to have a better voice this time around.
I must say, you have a very sonorous voice today.
Thank you. Oh, sonorous. Thank you. That's good. First definition, strong, barely controlled emotion. Second, a powerful feeling. For example, sexual attraction, love, hate, anger. The Cambridge dictionaries give the example, politics and philosophy were his lifelong passions. Ew, politics and philosophy. I know so many people who are into politics and philosophy, but, why did Facebook seize up? Let's see if I can get that back. Sorry, folks, I just got to make sure we're still live on all of the platforms. No, looks like we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
It was just one of my monitors said, I'm not going to show you the stuff. It has a passion to get in my way. Politics and philosophy were his lifelong passions. Well, philosophy is certainly a lifelong passion. Politics, yeah, kind of, to the extent that it's 1/5 of philosophy. So here's my question for you in the chat now that you've told me what your favorite breakfast cereal is.
Oh, actually, one thing is that
I see Jim Ashley gave us a better explanation for what the poem could be about.
Yeah, but Linda mentions Quaker Oat Squares.
Quaker Oat Square. I've seen those.
Linda Cordair at Cordair.com. Beautiful artwork.
Cordair.com.
Beautiful artwork.
What's her website again?
Cordair.com.
Awesome. Okay, before I get into my questions for you, we're going to finish this one up. Jim Astley, why do I stumble? Why do I think
Jim? Just say Jim.
It's I'm so used to being rickrolled that I have to stop putting the T in the name. Jim Ashley says I shouldn't read the last name, but Jim's kind of a public kind of guy. I guess usually I just read first names so folks have anonymity. Mm-hmm. See, that's what I get for trying to speak passionately.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Anonymity.
Thank you. Could the poem, Jim asks, be about the importance of living in the moment, to fully enjoy the moment, or to get the most value from it, neither sacrificing the present moment to the future, nor the future to the present moment? Could there be a vital connection between passion and the spiritual refueling one can get from a momentary experience? Is it how one keeps one's soul alive? That's a much better answer or series of questions than mine, and I will have to think about
Jim.
that.
Thank you so much.
That's something to be fired up about. In fact, my first question to you, and answer this in the chat, because we've got so many people in the chat. This is super awesome. I can't wait until we get super chat. People can put money on a question.
Super chat.
Answer mine first,
for
like
people on the,
like they
for
do
people
with
who are super.
Yeah, like they do with somebody who we all know. Here's the first question. What are you fired up about? What are you passionate about right now? See, what I'm fired up about right now is podcasting, but also writing over the year to come. Which is why I'm brainstorming what's going to happen with Radio Ragnar. I'm also fired up about things opening up.
Yes.
I have strong opinions, for example, about Texas opening up. I'm glad they are, even though I know some people will be reckless about it. And that's a sad thing because it will have the inevitable result. But I am so excited about things opening up this year, and I hope everybody will do the right thing in that regard. I'm so excited about doing things and seeing things. Amy and I were watching a video of our last gig.
Oh, yes.
Our last gig was in 2017.
3 years ago.
And that particular band kind of wound down a bit. And we're ready to go out there again, but of course we can't. So I am looking forward to rocking out again and seeing Amy on bass guitar.
It was a great recording because my bass was really, really loud in the mix.
That's true. Why was my guitar so low in the mix?
I don't know.
Well, we were using like action cams, so the audio that the camera captures can be pretty funky.
You might be wondering what we were playing. It was White Punks on Dope by the Tubes.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Last gig
Just
at
imagine. Just imagine, if you will.
at the Garden Bowl in December of 2017. The oldest functioning bowling alley in North America, by the way. And we were playing in the bar out front. Other things that I'm fired up about, other things that I'm passionate about. Vacationing. I want to expand my reach in the world again. You know, when we went to Paris, when we went to Jamaica, even when we have gone to, like, Ocons in Nevada and wherever else we've been, Pittsburgh and Columbus, and, of course, all around Washington, D.C., you just feel like you own the world. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't traveled for a few years, you start feeling... stuck isn't the right word, but just more associated with your immediate area than I want.
True.
I am so looking forward to vacationing.
People are fired up about, Linda's fired up about the freedom to run our aesthetic orphanage.
Yes.
Yes, at Cordera.com.
That's right.
Holly is fired up about birding. And Jennifer's fired up about getting my vaccine. Or her vaccine. My vaccine, too.
Yep.
Yes.
So when I started thinking about passion, one of the quotes that comes to mind a lot for me, anytime that I'm not feeling passionate, anytime I'm finding it difficult to tap my passions, my values, there are a few quotes that come to mind, and they come from Ayn Rand.
Oh, good. How nice.
Who some people don't always think of in terms of passion, in terms of emotion.
Right.
But passion it's fun if you do a text search through her books. Passion is an enormously common item. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when Francisco D'Anconio is talking to Dagny Taggart, and I won't give any spoilers, but it's a place where she has come and she's not going to stay. And Francisco says, "That's okay, you'll return to us. You'll be back." Mm. He says, "Dagny, all three of us are in love with the same thing, no matter what its forms. Don't wonder why you'll feel no breach among us." She leaves. "You'll be one of us so long as you'll remain in love with your rails and your engines, and they'll lead you back to us, no matter how many times you lose your way. The only man never to be redeemed is the man without passion." The only man never to be redeemed is the man without passion. It comes up a lot.
I need to reread that now.
Yes. In The Fountainhead, telling Henry Cameron's story, she wrote, "Men hate passion, any great passion. Henry Cameron made a mistake. He loved his work. That was why he fought. That was why he lost." Yes. So yes, people will not always love you for your passions. Well, the good people will.
Oh, Mary Elaine says she's excited about Ocon in Austin.
Yes.
Yes. And she got her second COVID vaccination.
Oh,
last
hooray. And
Thursday.
congratulations. Congratulations to lots of people we know who've gotten their shots.
Yes.
Including dearest friend Echo. Got her first shot.
Awesome. I love it.
Yep.
More people for me to hug.
Yeah, this is a longer paragraph, but I really want to read it from The Fountainhead. Mm-hmm. This is when Howard Rourke makes friends. I talked to people recently about the book The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
And the character of Howard Rourke, who some people regard as stoic. And I always say he's one of the most passionate people in literature.
He is.
So there's a scene in which he's meeting with Mike Donegan, who he met on a job site. Mm-hmm. His real name is Sean
Xavier Donegan.
Yes. And they have this great friendship, and it's out of mutual respect for work. She writes, "They sat together at a table in the corner of a basement speakeasy, and they drank beer, and Mike related his favorite tale about how he had fallen 5 stories when a scaffolding gave way under him, how he had broken 3 ribs but lived to tell it. And Rourke spoke of his days in the building trades. Mike did have a real name, which was Sean Xavier Donegan, but everyone had forgotten it long ago. He owned a set of tools and an ancient Ford and existed for the sole purpose of traveling around the country from one big construction job to another. People meant very little to Mike, but their performance a great deal. He worshipped expertness of any kind. He loved his work passionately, and he had no tolerance for anything save for other single-track devotions. He was a master in his own field, and he felt no sympathy except for mastery. His view of the world was simple. There were the able, and there were the incompetent. He was not concerned with the latter. He loved buildings. He despised, however, all architects. He loved his work passionately, and he had no tolerance for anything save for other single-track devotions. I especially love this line. People meant very little to Mike, but their performance a great deal.
Yes, so good.
Can you really separate performance from people? See, Mike loved people. He limited him. He loved good people.
Yes.
He loved people who could perform, and you can say the same thing about Howard Rourke. Howard Rourke is extremely passionate. Howard Rourke loves people. There's only a few that he loves because there's only a few he shares value with.
Well, it's very high standards.
And what's unique about Howard Rourke is he doesn't have contempt, which kind of suggests here that Mike does, for people who can't perform. He just doesn't care about them. He runs into his arch nemesis one day, and Ellsworth Toohey says, we're alone here, Mr. Rourke. Why don't you tell me, in any words you wish? No one will hear you. Tell me what you think of me. And Rourke says back to him, but I don't think of you. And the great thing about it is it's not a dig. It's not an insult. It's not a slam. He really doesn't think of his opposition. He just doesn't think. They don't matter. It's not, ooh, I don't like you. It's, ooh, I want to slight you. He just really doesn't care. Life is too short for that stuff. So, what are your passions? And can you make passions happen yourself? I wrote this in my Facebook notes leading up to this episode because passion as an emotion, so you go back to the definitions, if passion is an emotion, can you make it happen yourself? Well, directly, no, you can't directly cause an emotion. An emotion is a result of a subconscious integration, value evaluation. But indirectly, of course you can. Just like indirectly, you can cause just about any emotion you want once you know what causes a given emotion. So do you have a list, a reservoir, an inventory of values which bring out your passions?
Yes.
We talked about you should have a list of movies you want to see. You should have a list of your favorite music. You should have an inventory, ideally on paper and where you can find it when you need it, of your values. So in this case, a list or a reservoir, an inventory of your passions. And I've got a few of these. For example, folks who've seen my list of important songs, and I have a list of probably 40, 50 songs that can change my, and I don't just make me dance, make me smile, songs that can change my state deeply. I know where they are and I know I can play them. I can't will myself to be happy directly, but I can easily make myself happy by calling upon my values. That list of important songs. Activities, specific activities that I know bring out the passion for me. Bicycling. If I get on a bicycle, even if I don't feel like going bicycling, if I get on a bicycle and I go from one place to another, a standing bike, a stationary bike doesn't work. I need to see the world move underneath me, under my own power. That changes everything. Playing a musical instrument, picking up a guitar and playing it changes my state and brings out the passion. There are thoughts that bring out the passion. There are thoughts in philosophy and thoughts in art and thoughts in music theory and the history of music that bring out the passion. Do you have a list? Do you have a reservoir of things that will bring out the passion when you need it? Not just motivation, but the fire. Or a set of mental tips and tricks for bringing it when you want or need it. Things we've talked about before, like changing your posture, putting yourself in the physical state of passion, breathing, modeling, using your imagination. We mentioned when Jim made his comments there, You can actually model. You can put yourself, just using your imagination or your memory, in a position where the passion comes out. You could go back to our episode on aphorisms and affirmations. There are some bits of wisdom that just take you back to a place not just of mindfulness, but of passion. And can you bring it back down? Can you bring it to a low simmer when you need to?
Mm-hmm.
Use those lists and find the things that put you in that deep, intense, but quiet place.
So we have some responses to my question that I put up on the chat.
Yes.
What activities bring out the passion in you?
Yes.
Jennifer says, walking with her doggy.
Oh, her dog is
Nina?
the sweetest dog. It's
Yes.
adorable. Oh my gosh.
And fearless, too. But that's another story.
Dangerously, or charmingly so.
Charmingly.
Yeah, charmingly so.
Yes. Jim Ashley says, songs. You don't mean white punks on dope, do you?
See, he called back to our earlier, you got us there. No, White Punks on Dope is actually not on my list of important songs.
It's not on my list of important songs, but it does get me fired up.
It's so stupid, but in an absurd and wry way, and especially if you know me, because I'm very anti-dope.
Right.
I've marijuana, the smell of the stuff, that it's one of those things where I'm glad it was legalized, and I hope I never encounter it again in my entire life. I've had more than my share of that stuff, and I don't ever want to see it again. But the song that's one of the reasons it's so funny to me to have learned, and some parts of that song are challenging. It wasn't an easy learn.
Oh, it's a great song. It really is. Musically, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but I still kind of feel Jim's finger pointing, digging into me there. A little bit of a dig there. That's funny.
Ginger says she is passionate about dancing.
Oh my
and
gosh,
I'm
yes,
definitely
that's
passionate
you.
about dancing.
That's Amy.
I love it. I love improvising.
Oh, it's a wonderful passion. It's mind, it's body, it's energy.
It's listening
and rhythm,
to music. It's picking out certain rhythms in the music to accentuate.
Oh, yeah.
It's, or you can just pick out the rhythm of the vocal or pick out the rhythm of the drums or whatever it is. It's so amazing.
Yes.
Jennifer posts, horse, horse, horse.
There's a story there we're not going to tell, depending on who might be listening in. But yes, horses are beautiful.
Horses are gorgeous, yes.
So the last thing I would say, going back to my earlier notes that I posted online, is that in regard to knowing how to bring out your passions, how to manage them, how to bring them back down when you want, practice. And this gets back to Jim's earlier comment about the poem. Close your eyes. Call on your memories. Call on your strengths. Call on your mindfulness, your presence, your focus. You can put yourself in that state, and you can do it anytime you like. It's an interesting exercise. Imagine yourself on an airplane. The airplane's going to Jamaica.
Mm.
You know what? Have you been on an airplane? Yes, you have.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it sounds like.
Yes.
You know what the little air thing above sounds like. If you close your eyes, you can remember that. In fact, you can kind of remember what the back of the seat feels like.
Yeah.
And it's comfortable, but it's also uncomfortable. It's that kind of mix of...
I'm there and I'm going to Jamaica right now.
You're going to Jamaica. You have that anticipation. You can hear the people around you. You can hear the kids. You can hear the adults. You can hear the guy next to his earphones because he's watching a movie on the little monitor. And occasionally the cabin... what do they call the cabin attendants? They used to be called stewardesses and stewards. Flight attendants. That's
Flight
right.
attendants,
We have to be
yes.
politically correct. Yeah. So you can hear them occasionally, bringing somebody a drink. And when you get off the airplane, the air is going to feel so different
Oh, wow.
than it felt when you left your wherever you're coming from.
I can hear the steel drum music and the reggae and
Yes, and you're going to get in a cab, and they're going to take you to your hotel, and there's going to be the ocean view, and there's going to be the pool, and you can taste the fresh fruits and fancy foods, and you can hear the music and the dancing, and if you think about it enough, you can put yourself in that state, and you can use those kinds of visualizations to tap into all of your passions. It's not escapism. It's visualization, it's projection, it's imagination. It's using those aspects of your consciousness for what they're there for.
Jennifer smells jerk chicken.
Yes. Oh,
and pineapple.
Yes.
And speaking of food, Linda Cordair mentions that she is passionate about cooking.
Yes. Wonderful. See, I mentioned Clubhouse. And just before I started setting up for today's show, I looked at Clubhouse, and sure enough, Lex Friedman was on again. And this time he was in a room with New York Times bestseller Angela Duckworth.
Okay.
And some folks will remember we talked about Angela Duckworth when we talked about grit. Because she wrote the book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And it's funny because when I thought about, let's talk about passion, I forgot. Well, that was sort of part of that episode, and we talked more about perseverance than we did about passion, but still, we did talk about it. Now, one of the things that Angela Duckworth said was, what's most shocking is how little science can tell us about grit and how to build it. So far, the best idea she had heard was the growth mindset, the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed. So you need to convince yourself, presumably by looking at the evidence, that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can grow with your efforts. And she gave an interesting example. They did a study. I don't know how they did this, but they took a bunch of kids. And the kids who learned about the brain, they had a bunch of kids in measuring their results in the academic environment. And they took a group of kids and actually gave them lessons on neuroplasticity, on the brain and how the brain's capabilities expand when applied and how they tend to atrophy, not physically, but just your ability. Atrophies when you don't apply yourself. But that the more you apply yourself, the more you can apply yourself. And they found that the kids who went through the lessons on the brain and neuroplasticity improved more. And it really came down to just the people who believed in themselves, who believed that they would be capable, were more capable. In that episode, there were 5 characteristics of grit we talked about. Here's another stack of notes from last year, another one of those big stacks. 5 characteristics of grit. Perseverance and passion. First was courage, your ability to manage fear of failure. The ability to manage fear of failure is imperative and a predictor of success. Number 2, conscientiousness. Commit to go for the gold rather than just show up for practice. Follow through. This was related to the 10,000 hours idea, that if you spend 10,000 hours on anything, you'll get good at it. Resilience, fueled by optimism, confidence, and creativity. And finally, passion for excellence. This one I kind of took away a little more than the others. Passion for excellence versus perfection. In general, gritty people don't seek perfection, but instead strive for excellence. Well, I think that could do with a clarification of what perfection means. But yeah, perfection isn't perfection if it's not excellent. And going back to that episode was interesting because, again, I kind of forgot that we had a whole episode where we discussed passion and perseverance, in other words, grit.
Oh, those will be listed in the show notes, won't they? If
and
you guys want to go back.
they are listed in the show notes.
I'd like to take this time real quick to let you guys know that not only do we have Patreon if you'd like to support us, but if you to paypal.me/Robert Nasir, you can contribute there as well. Give us a little tip, perhaps. And we also have our YouTube up in the chats on Facebook. If you want to go there and go ahead and like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, we would love it. We'd appreciate it. We love you so very much. And we'd love to see a little reciprocation on that. And if you'd like. So there you are. Just wanted to add that into it real quick because I know that we're wrapping up pretty soon. I do actually have some things to say about passion.
Yes. Well,
where are you with your notes there, dear?
I don't know. I just lost track. I didn't realize you were going to. do some marketing there.
Surprise. All right.
So if our passion and perseverance, if our grit can be reinforced by knowing that we are capable, in other words, if we can adopt the growth mindset, how can I change my fixed mindset into a growth mindset? And I'm starting to realize that may be where a coach could come in. And folks know I've been very interested in life coaching lately. But first, me personally, I'm going to start with more of a physician to heal thyself approach. And I'm going to try to work, because the way that you adopt, in my mind, the way that you adopt a growth mindset is to study and do it. In other words, convince yourself, oh yeah, that actually works. Look at the evidence. We're rational. We look at the evidence. So I will be making an inventory of my own limiting beliefs.
Oh, wow.
For the purpose of re-examining them and reframing or reformulating and embracing more accurate beliefs. And I advise you to do the same, and you can take that as this week's homework if you like. For this assignment, the two limiting beliefs I have that I'm starting out with are, number one, I don't have the smarts and the talent to succeed in the world of digital media in 2021. With everything coming up, I'm just not up for it. That is my number one limiting belief. And my number two limiting belief is, I don't want it bad enough. I just don't have enough passion. And those are limiting beliefs that should be pretty easy to question and replace with more accurate beliefs. But it's weird. We've talked about this idea of, well, sometimes you need to change your beliefs in order to accomplish more. And to me, you don't really change your beliefs. You simply learn better. Beliefs, it's like people who change their religion when they get married because their spouse was a different religion. And I always think, anybody who can do that, did they really believe the thing? You remember we talked about the difference between beliefs and knowledge and faith. And so I don't want to be too woo here. What I really want to do is take my limiting beliefs and determine if they're true, and assuming that, oh yeah, they're not really, find more accurate beliefs to replace them with. Not just better beliefs, which is kind of subjective, but both better, more empowering, and more accurate understandings. And I encourage anybody to go along with me on that journey.
We always love to hear from you, especially on our Facebook site, 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, which you can join if you are already not on there.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yes, you can. That's right.
Yes, you can.
So before I get to the wrap-up notes here, Amy, what did you have to say about passion?
Well, I kind of took it a little bit differently.
Yes.
Passion. Because this does, and maybe we can go ahead and devote an entire episode on this, written by me.
Good.
About the question, and I hear this a lot from a lot of people, young and old and in between. I need to figure out what I'm passionate about in life and find that job that I'll be so happy about, that job that I will be able to wake up in the morning and feel so grand about. And
the challenge of finding your passions.
Yes, challenging, to find your passions. And so that actually kind of got me down into a rabbit hole. And I have some differing perspectives on what passion is. Because my question to Google is, what is passion? And a lot of people have very different perspectives on it. A lot of very different perspectives on it. It's not just the definition of great enthusiasm or strong emotion about something. So the one very simple question that I absolutely love is, are there tasks that you do in your workday that you would do for free because you like doing them so much? And I thought that was a great question to ask myself. And I know the answers. And I am doing some of those things that I do like and I do enjoy. I do get charged up about, and it's very pleasant for me to do. And it's a pleasant way to spend my time while making money and doing something I like.
Yeah, the classic formulation there is it something you would do even if you didn't need to do it for the paycheck?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Find a job that you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes. Then there is a very different view of this. So a lot of people say, well, try new things, do this and that, spend a year out of high school before you go into college, figure out who you are and what you want. And so this is the opposite. And this is, I've heard this too. It's basically, you shouldn't go out and find your passion. That is not something that is necessarily, it's something that people agonize over. And I understand this. And I sometimes do this as well. You agonize, am I, the fear of missing out. Did I get the right job? Did I, in the whole second guessing yourself. And there's this one TED Talk by this one lady, which I'm sure we'll post. Basically, she says, you don't create your life first and then live it. You create your life by living it, not agonizing over it. And there's definitely some wonderful kernels of truth into that. And my takeaway of that was your passion can be simply doing a good job and being proud of yourself for engaging in reality, which is an interesting way of taking what passion is. Her basic definition is passion is the full force of your attention and your energy that you give to whatever's right in front of you. And then you look for problems that need solving. She says passion is not a job or a sport or a hobby. Passion is the feeling of being expanded and energized kind of thing. So that's a very different way of looking at this, where people are trying to find their passion and they're coming at it from a very different angle. And the last one that I'll mention is this person's funny. A passion is a willingness to suffer for what you love. Which we can get into, but maybe this will just be a bit of a teaser because we're coming up on the hour. But yeah, there's some good things about this and some very bad things about this. The good thing is that you prioritize your values and you eliminate some things that you can't do any longer if you want to make room and make space and make time for things that you love. So that's what that gets down to. But that's what I thought of when Robert asked me, Amy, we're going to be talking about passion today.
Excellent. So I was writing my Post-it note for the day.
Yes.
Or the week. I put up a new Post-it note every week, something that reminds me of something I need to know, often the theme of whatever this week's show was. And I realized I needed to rewrite a note I had done before. And so I modified it a little bit. The original note said, if anybody can do it, you can. And you can read that there. If anybody can do it, you can. It's a figure of speech, Come on, if anybody can do it, you can do it. You're the guy. But what I said at the time, and what I still believe, is if anybody can do it, if it's doable, then you can do it.
Okay.
If anybody has ever been able to rise to the challenge you're facing or anything like it, you can do it too. It is a thing that people can do. And if you're willing to do what the last guy did, you're going to make it happen too. It's possible. So this week I'm reframing that as you are able and you are passionate. And that's what my Post-it note says for the week. You are able and you are passionate. Because I've been having to remind myself of that. I'm having to, I have that winter feeling. And as the weather's changing, I'm becoming more conscious of it. that first hour or two of the day is spent in comfort rather than in getting fired up. And so if you want to share the week with me, again, my assignment for the week is to find 2 limiting beliefs that I face, and I told you what they are, re-examine them, figure out the actual truth behind them, the more empowering belief that is more accurate. And also my Post-it note says, you are able and you are passionate. And when I see that on my bathroom window in the morning, it will be a good reminder. Again, like most of these Post-it notes, a reminder of something I already know. But for reasons of psychology, I need to remind myself. I have a second Post-it note. And if you can see that, it says Stoics, except it's the circle with a line through it. So it really says, no Stoics. I am very, what's the word I'm looking for? Sympathetic to? No, it's...
You're intrigued by it?
I'm intrigued by... I get a lot out of reading...
Yeah, Marcus
Stoic,
Aurelius or...
And not the whole books, but, the aphorisms and affirmations that you get from Seneca or Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosophers. And in doing notes on an episode on passion, I realized that I need to reread Aaron Smith's article. He did an essay called The False Promise of Stoicism. And it makes, and I still love the Stoics, but it makes it easier for me to remember what's good there. What are sort of the bits of fruit I can pick out and what are the dead branches I need to leave behind. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Aaron Smith's article, The False Promise of Stoicism. It's on the Ayn Rand Institute website. It's a long article, but it's good that it's long because for people like me who see value in Stoic philosophy, I really need more detail is better in picking out what's good and what needs to be left behind. He points out a lot of people got into Stoicism when it became popular a few years ago, and a lot of people take it as the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We've quoted that before on this show. But there are pitfalls there. There are reasons why we're not Stoics, as much as we admire a lot of their conclusions. So that information is also in the show notes. Again, this is going to be an interesting year, an interesting journey. I'm going to need all the passion I can get to keep making this podcast better, to keep offering all of you wonderful people out there, love you so much, some kind of fun, a little bit of insight, maybe some inspiration. Anyway, reasons to listen on Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And to do the new things I'm going to be doing this year, both with the Objectivist Network and Ragnar Radio and Clubhouse and Ayn Rand Center UK and a few other things that we haven't talked about, but including more interviews on the podcast, reaching out to people who've already asked to be on the show. All of that is coming. I'm going to need all the passion I can get, all of the energy I can get, all of the motivation that I can get. And as usual, the number one top of the list, totally Frank Sinatra reason for us being here, the big motivation is all of you out there. So thank you so much for being there, as always. And as always, let's see, I was going to do the reminders, but I think you've already done them. Show notes will be online within 10 minutes of the end of this show, including links to all of the interesting things we talked about and 1 or 2 things we might not have gotten to.
Yes.
If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can post them in our Facebook group, 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, or add them to the show comments. Either way, as you know from the clever answers we've given you in the past, we will get to them. If you would like to support the show financially, and thank you to everyone who does, including another new patron who came on this week, Patreon.com/Robert Nasir is where you can sign up to make a monthly contribution to the show. A couple dollars here and there would make all the difference. Thank you so much to those who do. If you'd like to make a one-time contribution, you can go to paypal.me/Robert Nasir, and there's a link there that will safely convey your generosity to our waiting hearts. And again, thank you so much for joining. As always, we wish you success. We wish you happiness. This week, we wish you super duper passion. We didn't even get into the romance part of that, but believe me, we will. And as always, and speaking of romance, as always, we wish you love.